Good afternoon, Michael.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Can you please give us a quick summary of your educational background and your experience as a portfolio manager?
Yeah, I can. I guess it's not overly quick when I do the educational background. I have 4 university degrees.
Yes.
So I started at Carleton University, and I have undergraduate degrees in economics and statistics. I have a master's in econometrics and mathematical economics from the London School of Economics in England. And then I came back to Canada, and I finished a master's in mathematical finance at the University of Toronto.
Gee.
And when I was done that, then of course the CFA on top of that. So I sort of have a number of letters after my name, but that's the nature of the
Nice
beast.
to have.
Right.
What about your experiences managing portfolios?
Yeah, I started in the late 90s with a company called Elliott and Page. They were wholly owned by Manulife, and even at the time when I joined, and that ultimately turned into MFC Global. And I was doing Canadian equities while I was there. But in 2004, I moved from MFC Global to a firm called Burgundy Asset Management, which is in downtown Toronto. And I also moved from doing Canadian equities to European equities. And then 2009, 5 years later, is when I joined currently the Trimark Investments. And I've been with Trimark Investments for the last 7 years.
Excellent. You manage investments in our Trimark Euro Plus fund that we have in our portfolios. Can you tell us about your investment approach and what makes this fund unique?
Well, we're really focused on quality businesses, and I guess there's a number of sort of things that would go around that. When you find quality businesses, you can own them for very long periods of time. So our turnover in our funds are typically around 20%, which means our average holding period is around 5 years. So what makes the fund unique, I think, is the collection of the businesses that we have, and they really have these attributes. They have high returns on capital, so for every dollar that they have, they earn a lot of money. They earn a fair amount of money. For every dollar that they earn, it's really not an accounting earning. It's cash that comes back to us as shareholders. And then the third thing is, and this is the most important thing, is we identify clearly what stops other people from competing against these businesses. So we're really focused on this competitive advantage or this moat around the business. Yes. So when you put all of that together, and these companies can also organically grow, it leaves you with a portfolio of very high quality businesses, high reoccurring cash flows that you can own for a very long period of time.
Excellent. How do you find these companies, and what kind of due diligence do you perform on those?
Right. So we'll find them any way we can in that sense. So it really starts with the first company that you research, and you try to find a high quality business, and you research that, and once you do that, then you move on to the next company, and then you move on to the next company, and over time you build up this list of high quality businesses. And what do I mean by that? We've been long-term shareholders in a company called Diageo, where you may not recognize the name, but you definitely know what they do. I mean, they own Johnny Walker's, Bailey's, Guinness, and Smirnoff, the world's largest spirits manufacturer. So once you understand spirits is a good business, then you start looking at their competitors, which would be a Pernod Ricard, and then you start looking at the beer companies, which would be Anheuser-Busch InBev or Heineken. So you go down that path, and you look at the suppliers, and you look at everything's related to them, and you'll ultimately uncover these businesses. The second way that we uncover businesses is with global travel, and that is we are constantly on the move, trying to going to the regions we're investing in. So Matt Peden he's over in Europe a lot, and Jeff Fang is over in Asia a lot. And when they're over there, they're meeting the senior management of the companies that we will ultimately invest in. So you'll find new companies just being on the road and constantly reading.
Excellent. We hear a lot these days about index investing. What's your views on index investing versus the contribution of your active management style?
We clearly believe you can add value with active management. Now, there's a couple things that when you look at our funds or the way that we would invest, we're more concentrated, and we look nothing like the index. So, for example, it would be the Euro Plus or the Trimark fund is what's called the active share. So we look at the percentage what the index is made up of, and we look at our funds, and our active share ranges from 91 to 94%. So we look a lot different than the index. But the benefit, when you look different than the index, but you're focused on what we talked about, these high quality businesses, these are the businesses we think are going to do well for very long periods of time. And that's versus an index. Now, the challenge with the index is you're going to own a lot of stuff that you may not want to own. And if you, for example, most indices, whether it be global or Europe, there's 23, 25% of those are financials. So, in the current environment that you're having with European banks and the Western European banks particularly, where that's not where you want to be, if you own an index in Europe, you're going to have about 23 to 25% of these businesses. So we prefer to be much more selective and make sure that we only own the companies that we want to own.
Excellent. Can you tell us about a few of the companies you like, and what do you like about them?
So some companies that we've added over the last year, one of the more recent adds is a company called Stericycle. It's not a company that most people would, off the top of their head, know what they do. They're the largest company in the U.S. that collects medical waste. And why is that interesting? Well, medical waste, this is all the stuff that's being generated by the doctor's office and the hospitals. It's highly regulated. Nothing can go wrong with this. This isn't just picking up a bag of garbage from your side and bringing it to a depot. You need to make sure that it's picked up safely, that it's contained safely, that it's disposed of safely. And Stericycle is one of the largest. Matter of fact, they have the dominant market share in the U.S. We had the opportunity to buy them because they made an acquisition that the market didn't like. Is that they ended up buying a Canadian company called Shred-it, which is essentially the document destruction business. So these are the people that pick up paper. Now you think of paper not being as sort of highly regulated as your medical waste, but it depends on what industry you're in. And if you're in the healthcare industry, all the clients' records are obviously have a lot of privacy around them. If you're in the financial industry, all client records, all financial statements need to be sort of disposed of properly and very carefully. So they've moved into this business, the same business model of trucks picking up sort of regulated or pieces of garbage that have to be that need to be disposed of very carefully. And the market didn't like that. The stock stole off significantly. We had our opportunity to buy that. So that's one business. We also like a business in the U.S. called Grainger. And once again, it's not your typical. We own businesses like Walt Disney, or we own businesses like Nestle in Europe that people would recognize. But Grainger is one of the largest distributors into what's called the maintenance, repair, operation market. What is that? Is if you have a large facility, these are the guys that are selling you the thousands of products that you need to run the facility, like cleaning products, small tools, safety equipment for your employees, and they by far have the dominant market share in the U.S. The market sort of got very pessimistic on this company back in Q4 and Q1, and it was at 260, and it dropped all the way down to 185. And this is a business we've been following for a long period of time, and we've just used that volatility to take a position within the funds.
Okay. What type of investment teams are you mostly optimistic about in the next few years?
So the one that comes to mind that actually is going to last a lot longer than the next few years, and that is the move in the emerging markets from people moving into the middle class. And this is really, that middle class group in the emerging markets is going to be get bigger for longer. This is really a 20 to 30 to 50 year trend. Now, why that's important for us is, if you were to take this company like a portfolio like the Euro Plus Fund, we have many businesses in there that have substantial exposure into selling products into the emerging markets, and many of these businesses you may not think, or people may not be aware of how much exposure they have. But Nestle is one of the world's largest food businesses, and 40 to 45% of their operating profit comes from the emerging markets. And it comes from the distribution platforms that they've been building over the last 30 to 40 to 50 years. Unilever is another example of a European business that has almost 60% of their operating profit comes from the emerging markets. Diageo, which we talked about, is 45%. So in all of these companies, we're not trying to figure out whether that new middle class can afford a $20,000 BMW or Audi. We're trying to figure out whether they can afford a $30 bottle of Johnny Walker Red, or a $2 packet of laundry detergent that Unilever says. So these are like affordable luxuries. And we actually feel that these brands and platforms and these quality businesses have an extremely long runway to actually structurally grow their emerging market business.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, Michael.
Great. Thank you very much.